Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Maximo Blanco to defeat Chaz Skelly. And I'm here to talk about Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev, the co-main event. Credit to Kamaru Usman first and foremost for taking this fight, stepping up on very short notice to go to Abu Dhabi, something he's done before. But this here is a ballsy move. And it's much ballsier than even defending your title against a guy like Jorge Masvidal on short notice. This here is him moving up the fight, maybe the most dangerous guy in the sport by reputation, Khamzat Chimaev. Usman is 36 years old, 20-3 as a pro, and he's given up 2 inches of height, but has 1 inch of reach over 29-year-old Chimaev, who is 12-0. Khamzat Chimaev, he's got a perfect record. 12 wins, as I said, 11 of them are via finish, 6 knockouts or TKOs, 5 submissions, and half of his total wins are in the UFC at this point. He's got a lot of UFC experience. Although when you add up all the time, maybe not. He has gone through everybody in round 1, aside from John Phillips, ironically, who he made his debut against. John Phillips somehow dragged him into round 2. I mean, he was mauling him. John Phillips didn't have any success in that fight, but still he survived. And then Gilbert Burns is the only guy to really give him any sort of a fight. And that was a wild fight. Decision. Could have been split. It was a very, very close fight that could have gone either way. And Khamzat Chimaev, that's his most impressive fight, even though he was face-planted for a moment there and tested in a lot of different ways. He hung in there, showed a lot of natural traits as a fighter, and really exceeded my expectations. Although I was picking him to steamroll Gilbert Burns in round 1, to be honest, but once that didn't happen and he was put into the middle of a back-and-forth brawl, then he exceeded my expectations because I got to learn so much about him. But when he's not being dragged into an actual fight, he's steamrolling everybody. And that's at the UFC level, from Kevin Holland to Gerald Meerschaert, Li Jingliang. Khamzat Chimaev is just too much for a lot of excellent fighters. He does have knockout power. I mentioned the Meerschaert fight. That was a clean knockout in 17 seconds. He also knocked out Ikram Aliskerov, who was fighting, I think, 2 fights before this on the main card. Ikram Aliskerov may not be one of his most high-profile wins, but it's definitely one of his best wins. And he caught him with a beautiful uppercut. And that's the thing with Chimaev. I mean, he is physicality, athleticism, and just aggression, all that in round 1. But there's a little more sophistication that meets the eye. This guy, I mean, he's definitely a sharp striker and a really, really sharp grappler. Grappling's where he gets most of his work done. Even his TKO victories, a good amount of them come on the ground. He's a guy where if he can rip you to the mat and you don't have the jiu-jitsu of Gilbert Burns, he's probably going to run through you inside of a round because he's just so dangerous offensively. So dangerous. He went and strangled Kevin Holland. I had it in my head. It looked like the Chaz Skelly versus Maximo Blanco fight. That's why I opened up this video thinking about that, because that's what it reminded me of. I rewatched the fight this week. It wasn't quite like that. That finish was like 10 seconds or whatever. This was a good little battle for 2 minutes, but it was just Kevin Holland surviving, and he's a squirrely, rubbery fighter, but Khamzat Chimaev caught him and eventually strangled him. He's got a killer darce and rear naked choke and whatever. This guy, he's going to choke a lot of people in his future. Here, he's fighting the best fighter he's ever fought in Kamaru Usman. Even if he doesn't get the best fight he's ever gotten, he's definitely fighting the best guy, Kamaru Usman. Usman, of course, beat Gilbert Burns at a title fight a few years ago, 3 years ago, whatever. TKO'd him in round 3 after being knocked down. But Kamaru Usman, he's a living legend, especially after taking this fight on short notice. He is 20-3, 10 finishes, 10 decisions, 1 submission, and 9 TKOs or KOs. The 1 submission, ironically, comes in his UFC debut against Haider Hassan, I believe, with an arm triangle choke. I remember thinking when he was coming off The Ultimate Fighter, he would be an arm triangle choke type of fighter. And instead, I'm sure he sharpened those skills, but he definitely sharpened his hands, and that's the direction he trended in his development. And his striking picked up some great wins for him, getting finishes over Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, and Gilbert Burns at the championship level, and also knocking out Sergio Moraes on his way up. But Kamaru is a very good striker, very powerful. I have a little bit of doubt about him after the last year. It's where he suffered 2 of his 3 losses. He's got 3 losses, 2 of them to Leon Edwards and 1 to Bruce Leroy's brother, Jose Caceres. That was way back when, probably 10 years ago or so. Leon Edwards knocked him out in round 5 and then beat him by decision. It was a fight that he was dominating, the head kick knockout. He was dominating up until the head kick, and then headshot, bang, dead, all that. So when that happened, he was 35 years old, and I said, I have serious doubts about him moving forward. 35 years old, suffering a knockout like that, just one shot, a big kick, and sent him down, out cold. I thought that wasn't a good look, and it obviously wasn't. But he did return to action fighting Leon Edwards, and his chin held up. I thought he had lost a step in a few other ways. Just his wrestling, first and foremost, and his pace. But he's a guy, again, coming off a knockout loss. Probably had a lot of doubts going into that fight. But his chin held up, nevertheless. I did think he was clearly a step behind against Leon Edwards in the rubber match. Although he did win round 3, and he won it 10-8, actually, because Leon grabbed the fence. But aside from that, it was a Leon Edwards fight, and I thought, hey, you know what, he might have slowed down a little bit, went from a 10 to a 9 or something, but at least his chin didn't fail him. Leon Edwards had 5 rounds to touch that chin, and he touched it, but he never got him out. So there's that. And here in this fight, I think Kamaru Usman can make it very interesting if he can get past round 1. If he can get past round 1, Kamaru Usman's a guy with incredible cardio, championship-level experience. He knows he can push himself because he's only going for 3 rounds, which I know he took the fight on a few days' notice. I don't think cardio is going to be an issue for a guy like Kamaru in a 3-round fight. And I don't think cardio is going to be an issue for Volkanovski in the 5-round fight, by the way. I should mention that here. But I think as interesting as it could be in round 3, I don't think it's going to get there. I'm picking Chimaev to steamroll him pretty much. Chimaev, he's so, strong and physically gifted. I think there's a chance he could crack that chin here at 185 as well, even though Kamaru doesn't have to suck all the water out of his body and go through the weight cut. But I think Chimaev, there's a chance he could go through him with pure power. And if he doesn't, I think Chimaev can go through him in some other ways as well. I think Chimaev has enough to get through the wrestling of Kamaru Usman. And if he can get through the wrestling, I think it's going to be over pretty quickly. I picked him to steamroll Gilbert Burns. And he ripped Gilbert Burns to the mat. I thought he was going to steamroll him, but Gilbert Burns has that elite jiu-jitsu where he just immediately spun into Chimaev and got butterfly hooks or whatever. And Chimaev felt that and said, yeah, I'm not going to go through this guy. This guy's too sound jiu-jitsu-wise. I don't think that's going to be the case for Usman. I think if he gets past the wrestling, which is stronger than the wrestling of Gilbert Burns, to be fair, but I think if Chimaev can go through the wrestling, he likely finishes him inside of a round. Unless he takes him down with like 30 seconds left. But if Chimaev is able to get him down early like he did to Gilbert Burns, I think he's going to be finishing Kamaru Usman. Usman doesn't have the jiu-jitsu like Gilbert Burns does, where, he's going to spin every which way and keep his legs between you and him. I think Chimaev will have a overall grappling advantage over Kamaru Usman. He's just got to secure the wrestling advantage, which can be difficult, but I'm picking Chimaev to get it done. And of course, it may not even get to that point because Chimaev is a beast on the feet. Both guys are beasts, but I have doubts about Kamaru Usman. I don't know if I'd pick any other 12-0 fighter to beat Kamaru Usman. And I don't know if there'd be any other fighter that would have Kamaru at plus 225 where I wouldn't be betting my life on it. But here I'm picking Chimaev. I'm picking Chimaev. I think he's able to get past the wrestling and he gets through him pretty early. This is how I've always envisioned this fight going. It's not like I haven't considered this fight for the last few years. But yeah, I thought this fight would look, this is how this fight would look against Usman or even Colby Covington. These wrestlers that have such a distinct advantage over everybody else in the division. I think that advantage is taken away from him here against Khamzat Chimaev, especially in round one. And then if he is able to get past them in their wrestling, these guys aren't Gilbert Burns. I think Chimaev secures a dominant position and secures a finish in one way or another. So that's what I'm picking. I'm picking Khamzat Chimaev with all the, momentum behind Usman from the fans' perspective anyway. I really want Usman to win this fight, and I really want to be picking him. But I'm just trying to be real. I'm not picking him to win. I have bet on him winning in round 3 because I'm a degenerate. Just threw a sprinkle on that. But it's just a sprinkle because I think Kamaru Usman would be better in round 3 if he should find himself there against Khamzat Chimaev. But I'm picking Khamzat to get him out of there in round 1, and I've bet on that as well. Round 1 flat finish, because I think it could easily come from the hands, standing or on the ground. But my prediction with a gun to my head, is a choke in round 1. Rear naked choke, maybe a Darce. But I think Khamzat Chimaev gets through the wrestling, makes it a grappling bout, and makes it look easy. Easier than anybody else could against a guy like Kamaru Usman. That's the pick. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit. Check out my other videos.